Welcome back to the Megan Waldrop podcast. I'm your host, Megan. If you've been here for a while, you know how much I love you. Thank you for being here for another awesome conversation. And if you're new here, heck yes, we love you. We invite you in, pull up a chair, take a deep breath, untie your shoes, take off your bra, whatever you need to do to get comfortable, because this is a space for us to just chill, hang out with people who actually understand what it's like to be on this spiritual, moral, guided path that we're on. And that's how we lead our lives because we really value personal growth and we want to feel more connected to that spiritual connection, to that higher power, to have a deeper connection to our moral compass. And this conversation today is exactly that. This is an interview with one of my mentors, Nannette Stangle-Castor. And what makes Nannette super interesting is that she's a woman that leads with so much heart and integrity. And not only that, she grew up in a very challenging environment and was able to bootstrap herself to a business that went from $0 to multi-millions of dollars. She's worked with NASA, just to name drop a company that she's worked with, and she is a consultant for numerous others and mentors for many other entrepreneurs out there. And this conversation I love because, yes, this podcast, we talk about spirituality a lot, and we're going to talk more about breath work and energy work and what it feels like to feel more connected to your higher power, whatever that means. But Nannette is so specific in the fact that she believes in the goodness. She believes in the kindness, and that is her leading drive. It's like her beautiful moral compass is what has driven her through her business, her life, and raising a family. Oh yeah, not only that, she has children that she's fully raised on top of raising so much money and capital for herself and other businesses. So this is a wonderful conversation. I feel like this really carries on from discussing how I made a huge career shift. And Nannette was with me really every step of the way. Every mentor meeting I had, Nannette always offered such valuable advice. And she not only offered advice from somebody who is well-versed and an expert in her field, but she gave me advice as a woman, and that's what I'm talking about. I want to learn how to lead like a woman. And just hearing how she has been able to bring herself up into this hugely successful life and career that she's created is truly inspiring. And it just goes to show BYOB always. Bring your own beliefs, whatever that is. It's never the wrong answer. It's whatever feels right and true for you. So without further ado, here's my interview with Nannette Stangle-Castor. This conversation is going to be deep. It's not some typical conversation about business and women in business. It's about the actual behind the scenes, personally, how it affects us, and how Nannette has raised to so much success in her life through much adversity and being a woman in business and that tenacity and that resilience. And just think, we bonded at the CIE Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Wilmington, North Carolina one day, and we've just hit it off ever since. So thank you so much for being with me today and for all of us listening. I know this is going to be a great conversation, and I appreciate your time.
I'm grateful that we had that opportunity meeting that we had in Wilmington.
Me too. Okay, so let's go into the real stuff. You've shared it with me before, but I'd love for you to talk about your background in the sense that it wasn't maybe the most natural place for you to have grown into this incredibly successful woman that you have. I mean, you've worked with NASA among many other huge organizations and corporations. So tell me about your humble beginnings. It's so incredibly inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I think that people look and say, oh, well, she's successful. She's done this. She doesn't understand challenges that come about. But I come from a very small town in upstate New York, one stoplight, fourth generation paper mill workers in our family. I was not the type of person that you would expect to go to college and go on and be successful. But to be honest, my grandfather passed away when I was 8 of pancreatic cancer. And so I was very upset by all the stress and the grief and the sorrow and feeling helpless. So as an 8-year-old, not knowing anything else in the world, I decided I'm going to cure cancer because this is just an awful thing. So set it in my heart to do that and went forward and worked very hard in school. I had a very difficult childhood. We had alcoholism and mental illness in my family, so that made it equally difficult. but pushed hard, went and got a 4-year degree in my bachelor's, and then went on for my PhD and got a PhD in molecular pharmacology and cancer therapeutics. And I thought that's what I've been working for my whole life. Of course, then you get somewhere and then you realize, wait, it's not quite what you thought it was going to be. And so I realized cancer was a much bigger problem than just little old me taking my, hand to it and fixing it. And it was there that I realized that maybe it wasn't that I needed to change the world, that I could then help others change the world and have a bigger impact, that I had skills in translating and understanding complicated science where other people didn't. I'm first in family to go to college, and being able to go home and share with my family all the cool science stuff I was doing. I love that. Helping other students talk about what they were doing to everyday people so they could understand. So it was at that point that I transitioned from research scientist into more of the business angle of things, and translating complicated science for people and turning it into businesses, and being able to talk the language of science and business and everyday people to try to get everyone's arms around what's going on and all the excitement and innovation.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing about not only your background, but the mental health and alcoholism that so many of us have experienced personally through our own. One of me, I've experienced depression and addiction to alcohol, and I talk about it openly. And a lot of us try to hide that, and we don't want to talk about the family dynamic that we come from because of that. And I think it's so important that you just shared that, because I'm like, who doesn't have this in their background? Raise your hand, because I mean, seriously, everybody has something. And to know that you've come from that to where you are now is just really incredible.
Well, and I think I realized, for a time in my life, I wanted to kind of hide that. It's that whole imposter syndrome, maybe you don't belong here. But I realized that, especially when raising my own children, I am grateful to have an amazing 22 and 23-year-old son and daughter. And I saw a lot of their friends in that situation as well, and suffering with families that had, issues. And they looked at me like I wouldn't understand. And I realized that being open and honest made them say, wait, if you could do it, I could do it too, And so I think being honest is important. And I have another dear friend who is an entrepreneur as well, who also had a mother with mental illness. And we talked about how it makes you strategic. So I try to turn the challenges into what makes me good at what I do. When you grow up in a family with mental illness and alcoholism, you have to be a strategic thinker, because you're always trying to, what's the next step? What's going to happen? How do I position myself so that I can survive this or make it better or get through things? And, I really feel that as much as that was challenging, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, that's kind of one of my superpowers. It allows me to be strategic and think ahead, understand if I do this, it has these following implications, so I can act today, but understand the future impacts of things in a way that I think a lot of people can't. And that comes from my upbringing. So as much as it was challenging, I wouldn't change it, because it helped me get to where I am to be able to have the impacts that I have today.
Hey, I created a really cool freebie for you, and it's for the person who needs a reset but doesn't have a ton of time. And honestly, is that any of us throughout the day, all the time? You can check out the Calm Compass. It's a free guide with super simple tools you can use in under a minute, like breathing exercises, attention release, and little micro moments of calm. Honestly, you can use them anywhere, anytime, perfect for your desk, your car, or even the grocery store line. I'm telling you, I use these all the time. Life-changing game changers. You can grab it free at meganwaldrop.com/newsletter, or I'll put the link in the show notes. Totally. And the compassion is there. And also, like you said, it's kind of like getting organized and figuring out, where am I going to put my energy? How am I going to save what I need to use, my tools, my skills that I'm learning, and to make sure that I'm investing it in places that are worth my time. And I can see that it's going to also give me value of the value that I'm giving back. And I feel that really reflects a lot on the fact that you raised 2 kids while you're doing all this. You're excelling as a woman in business, which is a whole other conversation of having to make sure that your voice is heard at some of these big conferences and roundtables and these meetings, but you're able to have a solid foundation for your family. And so if you could, is there something that stands out to you of the values that you use for your business ethic, and how you've raised your kids in that way, and how you've helped them navigate how to make decisions and really trust their gut on that.
Well, it's one of those things where I want to be able to lay my head down at night and be comfortable with the decisions I made, and not look away from decisions I've made. I think sometimes in business we do things and we say, ah, I don't like that. That feels bad, but I'm just going to go on and do something different. I can't do that. That's just not who I am. And honestly, as a business leader and as a parent, it's by leading by example. And so if I can't make those decisions, how can others make them? How could my children? How could my employees? For me, if I ask my team to work with somebody that I think is difficult or uncomfortable, that's not fair. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to ask my team members to do it. And so it makes me be closer tied to my employees and my team. I refer to them as my team and my partners and everything. And so it's really important that you're comfortable with that. And I think as a business owner and as an individual, what are your core tenets? What do you believe in? What are your ethics? And make a decision on that of where they are, be open and honest about it. You treat others as you want to be treated. That kind of guides my my models and my roles, which seems simple, but it's actually to stop and ask yourself that question and say, is that the right thing to do? I was recently at a conference and someone said, think twice. And I think that's important. Sometimes we jump at things, especially in business. If you're struggling and an opportunity comes along, you want to take the opportunity because you want the revenue, you want to do what's there. But stop for a second and say, okay, yeah, I want to take it. If I do take it, what happens next? And, you don't always know when you can't think it out, but I do think that taking a few minutes to be thoughtful and make sure that the work aligns with what you want to do and what you want to be and what your legacy is really important.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You've hit on so many great points. Exactly. Like thinking twice, but also looking ahead and seeing how this is going to benefit. What is the energetic exchange for me at that moment? Is this actually going to move me forward? Or is this something that I feel like maybe vanity wise or something I could post on LinkedIn to look really cool and like get some good pictures out of it? But really, how is that actually going to help me and do the work that I want to do to help others? So can you give me an example of one of the values aside from treating people as you'd like to be treated that you seem to come back to, especially as a woman in business?
For me, is this going to create positive energy or negative energy? If what I do, is that going to make things better for others or worse? And, a lot of the work that I've done I take innovation, I move them from a bench top or a laboratory into commercial products. Ask yourself, is this something where I'm going to be proud of this happening later? Am I going to push this out there and then not like the results of that? For me, one of the technologies that we worked on was a material that NASA was working on, and it's now 15 years later carrying COVID vaccines in Africa. I'm proud of that. Like that's something where, again, I touched it many, many years ago, and it took a long time to come fruition. But that's something that I'm proud to say that I worked on. And so I try to use those examples in thinking about things when I decide which projects to take on and which not to take on.
Wow, that's so remarkable. Can you give us a quick list of some of the most proud accomplishments that you have? I know it's a quick list.
Oh my God, that's a really tough question. It's funny, I mentioned that one example because it hits home. It's one of those things where you do something today and you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We thought maybe this could be used for carrying vaccines. At that time, when I worked on it initially, that was way before COVID. We had no idea those things were going to happen. And then to see where it comes was just, wow, full circle. But I thought it was the right thing to do. It's funny when you ask about what my accomplishments may be, it's work, but it's tied to my personal. It's really hard to separate. I became an entrepreneur because I became a mom, to be very honest. I quit my job when I was 6 months pregnant because I decided that I wanted to be able to raise my children the way I wanted to raise them, my daughter at the time. And the work environment was not going to let me do that. And so I said, I don't know how this is going to work, but staying where I am won't allow me to be the mom that I want to be, and therefore the businesswoman I want to be. And so I quit. So, they're also tied together. So when I think of accomplishments, part of it is, what I've been able to do for my family because of my work. So, being able to support my kids through college, it was very difficult for me. It was financially very much a struggle. So being able to support my kids to be able to get their college education, and they both have graduated. I'm so proud of them. That's been fundamental. But what I've been able to do is the mentoring, to be very honest, it's certain clients have been able to, the nonprofit clients I've worked with have raised lots of funds. I've been able to help them bring in donors and supporters. Technologies I've moved out of NASA or the Corps of Engineers, allowing our taxpayer dollars to be going on and funding businesses and creating jobs. And that's wonderful. And I really love that. But for me, it's been helping others. So some people that have come into my team stay for a while and can go on somewhere else, but I've been able to help give them a foundation that helps. And having gone through running a business, what I find most exciting now is advising and mentoring and helping other entrepreneurs and small business clients, because I didn't have that support. I was a PhD woman, business owner in Research Triangle Park in 2000. There weren't many of us there, and when I was pregnant, forget it, there was no one else like me in the room. So I didn't have a lot of support, to be honest, and when I was starting out in things. And so now what I find most rewarding is being able to work with a lot of entrepreneurs, many women, underrepresented entrepreneurs, but all types of entrepreneurs, and help them achieve their dreams and how to move forward, but also to be practical and pragmatic. I can appreciate where they want to go, but I also think about where are you now and how are you going to make it till the end of the month, not just how are you going to make it 3 years from now. And I enjoy being able to bring that to others and then watching them grow. Just seeing others and the success they can have, if I've been able to help in any way, just brings me great joy.
Everything you say brings me back to my goal this year I wanted to learn how to lead like a woman. And you really embody that in so many ways. And like I've said, I've had so much, I've had the privilege to have you as a mentor officially through CIE since January. And what you bring to the meetings, I feel that everybody has such incredible input, but you always bring it home for me. You always like drive it home what the point is. And it always comes from leading from your heart and leading from your gut, because I think as women, I know as women, we want the best for other people. And sometimes that comes at a cost at our own mental health and our own strain. And what you've always turned it back to was asking me, is this something that you truly want to do? Does this really align with what you want? And is this worth your value, your time? Because really, if you're going to give, and you're not getting that value in return, then you're just going to get burned out and want to walk away. I'm sure that you've experienced that in your own way. And I definitely have too. And I do appreciate your viewpoint of leading like a woman, because it does come from the heart first. And it comes from that instinct that all women have of, is this the right move for me? And really for my family, the way that you mentioned about your children. So congratulations to your children and you, your husband, for raising these children. We're able to send them off to college and be able to give them what you've always wanted. I mean, what a huge accomplishment in itself. And I love that you put your family first in that list, because that just shows your leadership.
Well, I mean, like I said, in doing this, it's not just me alone. Having my husband, my partner, has been foundational to this. I can't stress that enough. Having somebody, and it doesn't have to be a spouse, if mine is, but it doesn't have to be a spouse, but some partner that you can share those ups and downs with. Because for us, as an entrepreneur, it's like a roller coaster, and the two of us, being able to manage that together, and his belief in me and what I could do for other people and for the world and for my kids, and has been critical in being able to believe in myself when maybe he believed in me when maybe I couldn't believe in myself, and helping me encourage that. That's been really important. But I will tell you, there's definitely been times when you talk about leading as a woman, being a woman business leader, where you catch yourself, like, where, oh, maybe I need to behave like something else. Like, for example, I've just recently become an investor. I'm starting to be a startup mentor and advisor, but I'm also an investor, which for someone who grew up not knowing where my next meal was coming from sometimes is like, it means a lot. So I'm trying to do it very intentionally. Like, it matters to me. I'm not just in it to make a lot of money. I'm in it to invest in people that are going to change the world. That's what I want to invest in. And I'm finding that that's different. It's quite different. When you talk about venture capital and angel investors, many of them are driven that way. They also want to make money, and there's nothing wrong with making money. As a woman, I think often we kind of put that to the side. It's okay to want to make money, but I don't have to be greedy. I really believe there's a place in the middle where we can all do well. So But when I first started getting into investing in the last couple of years, I wasn't really finding my tribe. Like I really didn't feel comfortable in some spaces. And so I had to look. At first I was like, well, maybe that's just the way it is. And at times I'm like, well, forget it. I'm just not going to be an investor. I'm not going to do this. And then I worked hard to find people that I agreed with on their principles, that were really into mentoring, along with giving money. It's not just the money, it's helping people along. And I was able to navigate to a couple of different groups. I'm an investor in Primordial and then Excel Ventures, which is a women-run fund, which I love. And I found people who have similar belief sets and really want to make a difference, are able in a position where they can now invest in other people, but they also, want to focus on the positive. It's not just about making the fastest buck.
Wow, that's amazing. And congratulations on getting that to that part. I feel like this is, I mean, how many iterations of Nannette has there been? And I'd love to go back to the very beginning when you made that decision. I'm quitting my job and I'm going off on my own. Tell us about what that moment was like, and then some of the most important moves or events that happened soon after that that made you realize that you were on the right track, that you made the right decision.
It was scary. So, 6 months pregnant, walking away from a job, including the benefits that, the maternity leave I would get. So it's additional pay. And, I was still paying off my graduate school student loans. And it was certainly not that it was a financially great time to do it. But again, I was like, if I'm going this path, it just doesn't feel right. And so I will tell you that the change happens in the discomfort zone. And the change that you make may be even more uncomfortable, but that's part of where you have to go. If it's really comfortable, it's probably not the right move. That's what I tell my kids all the time when they're going through something or struggling, is that if it's completely comfortable, chances are it's not the right place, because real change happens when you're uncomfortable. So I made the change and started, consulting, and decided, this is going to be the path. I want to schedule my life and my business around the way I want it to be, and make the decisions I want, and be able to raise my family the way that I want. So one of the most important things I did, and a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners don't want to talk about this, but I got my ducks in a row legally and financially. And they may say, well, it's too expensive, I'm not going to do that. I cannot stress alone. And again, I'm not getting any paid commissions from any attorneys or CPAs, but getting your legal status in order and filing all your paperwork, I can't stress enough how important that is. It protected me and it protected my family from my business. So you think of it, oh, your business is you and encompasses you, but financially they're two different independent structures. And whatever's happening with your business, I didn't want that to mess up or interfere or put my family at risk, So for me, I found a good attorney that I could trust, that I could have a conversation with. It wasn't transactional, it was relationship. And I still have the same attorney 22 years later, because I've been in business 22 years now. You find someone to do that, get your paperwork in order. And then I got an accountant as well, because you think you know what you're doing, but you need some professional advice about how do you set things up properly. Setting things up financially right will help you financially benefit from your business as well. So like in terms of what expenses you can write off, your retirement things later on, all of that is dependent upon setting up your books properly. So it doesn't take a ton of work for a long term, but right when you set up, get your stuff set up properly. And that has served me well, because the contracts and the opportunities I went after, I could not have done if I didn't have my legal status and my certifications and everything I did. By having those together, when the opportunity presented itself, I jumped on it, and I was able to take advantage of that and go after and, win my first, multi-million-dollar NASA contract. And it's one of those things where, by having things ready, I didn't know what was going to come. Like, at the time I'm, about ready to have my daughter and trying to manage things, and money's tight. And I could have just let that go and said, well, I'll get back to that. But by doing that up front and investing in myself and my business, it paid off in the future. But you have to do that. Take that extra, even though money may be tight, getting those things straightened up originally is really going to help you significantly.
Feeling calm and safe in our body and nervous system is how we define success in 2026. And it shows in how we care for ourselves and the people we love. Kent Safety Products makes flotation gear that gives both recreational and professional boaters peace of mind on the water. So whether it's a family day out or a long day on the job, you can focus on the breeze, the waves, and the moments that matter. Because safety is freedom. Freedom is calm. And calm lets your energy flow where it matters most. Visit KentSafetyProducts.com to learn more. That's KentSafetyProducts.com. Okay, you told me that the first time we ever had lunch, that was one of the first things out of your mouth was say, you said, get legal and get your CPA in order. I was like, oh, that's so not sexy and fun. But I hear you. And the fact that it gave you confidence to move forward with your next steps. And I want to talk about confidence because holy moly, multi-million-dollar contract and NASA. So those are two things that are massive statements. How did you have the confidence to say, oh, I'm going after this as my own entrepreneur, woman in business by myself? What the heck? Like, how did you know, oh, I'm ready for this and I got this? And did you have doubts along the way? And what made you push through the finish line?
Well, I mean, working along the way and working with NASA as a contractor, before with other groups and doing that got me expertise, got my feet in the door, let me get comfortable. So do what you do and, build your expertise. And then when the opportunity presented itself, at first I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And at the time I was a, one and a half person company and thought, if I do this, I'm going to have to grow. And I don't know about this. And how do I know about writing this? Can I get this done? And, yes, I had those thoughts, but I said to myself, and I often tell my, people that I mentor this, what's the worst thing that can happen by taking the next step? And so I said, okay, Nannette, you tell everybody else that, tell it to yourself, because, we're often worse for ourselves than we are for others. And I said, I could spend a month working on a proposal and I might not get it. And I'm like, what's the worst that happened? I've lost a few weeks with my kids, but it gave them time to spend more time with their father is okay. They can manage that. And I was able to kind of keep up the rest of my work. So I would lose time. So I basically was saying 4 weeks of my life, I'm going to be up to my eyeballs working on proposals and doing things. But is that bad of a loss? I'm like, can I take that? If it doesn't come through, can I live with the fact that I spent 4 weeks of this doing it? And I said, yeah, I can do it. And then I did it. And it worked, yes, there were doubts, but the funny thing is as I was writing the proposal, everyone has all these ideas on how you're supposed to write grants, and there are guidelines. Every grant, request for proposal, RFP comes out. This is what we want you to do, and yes, you must check the boxes, absolutely, 100%. However, I got to know the customer, like, who am I writing this proposal for? Who are the people? I interviewed them. I talked to them. I understood, what is it that you really want? I understand what's in the RFP, but what do you really need and what do you really want? And when I wrote the proposal, I kept that in mind. And even though I checked the boxes, I wrote to their heart of what they wanted that I knew would resonate with them. And yes, like I said, made sure the financials were there, did all of the, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. But at the end, I spoke to them in language that I knew would mean something to them. I knew what their pain points were because I had, done some work with them as a contractor in the past. I knew what those pain points were. And so I wrote to those. I spoke to those. And when I did, it resonated with them. And they were like, yeah, we want you. We absolutely want you to help us fix our problems.
Wow. I love that you went off script in a way. And
oh, anybody that knows me knows I'm always off script.
Yeah. And that's the gift. That's one of your superpowers. And it's interesting because I feel it can be intimidating to go off script and write to the heart of a big A corporation when you feel like, oh, wait, do they even want to hear that kind of language, or they want to go off track, or do I need to stick in this ABC mentality of speaking directly to a corporation, which as an entrepreneur, I'm thinking, I don't even really know how to do that. I'm used to creatively writing but I understand that there's parameters, especially when it comes to the grants, and the fact that you actually went out of your way to include those pain points really shows how much you really were invested and cared about what they wanted their outcome to be. And that really gives me a lot of inspiration to move forward, because I feel like sometimes I try to take out a lot of that to meet corporations where they are, you know, and
Not
realize,
make it too not make it too feminine, too women
right.
like that you're putting in the soft skills. But like I said, there are things you have to check. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, you've got to follow the parameters. But to me, I think that ultimately the decision makers are people.
Yeah.
We're all people. So talk to people that, the way that it fits. To kind of expand upon that, many years later, after I had had many other contracts, one of the big contracts I went after, it was working with a government agency, but it was a B2B contract. And I had fostered a relationship over many years, doing network activities and just being myself, and putting it out there, not knowing if a contract would come from it. And this contract came 5 years after my initial meeting with someone, because again, kept me in mind that you're the kind of person I want to work with when the opportunity presents itself. Well, it presented itself. And, they had a request for a proposal and I proposed. And, I put in what I knew it was going to cost to do it, because I've done these things before. I know my space. I know exactly how much this is going to take, regardless of what they think. I just knew, having had my hands in it many times. And so I wrote the proposal, and we had the follow-up. I made it through the first round. There was a follow-up, and they said, well, Nannette, your proposal was by far the best. We loved what you proposed. It's on target, but to be honest, yours was also the priciest. And they said, why should we pick you?
Mm.
And I said, because I chose you. And they were like, what? I said, I don't work with just anybody. I work with people that I know have a potential to do great things, and organizations that have it in them to make an impact. I think you are one of them, but I know you need my help. And so I chose you, and that's why you should choose me. And
Yeah.
I got off the phone and I was like, holy shit, I just said that? But so it was
Yeah.
kind of an all around moment. And what I realized was that that's really what it's about. Like, we always think of it, oh, please choose me, and as a entrepreneur, you're trying to get money, and it's hard. You always feel that. But sometimes we need to flip that script. You're worth it. And what you bring to the table is important. And if they don't see that, then it's not the right fit. Then say no. Like, it's okay. And it's actually beneficial to say no. It's hard because, you can lose money in it, but I ended up getting the contract, doing really, really well, and having them add to it over time. So it was, a big win. But I was in a moment at that point in my life where I felt really confident, and I just was like, you know what? No, it's because I chose you. I could be doing other contracts right now, but I really think you got it. So I want to work with you.
Wow, I love that, because I wanted to talk to you about negotiations and the fact that you lead with yourself. Hello. Why does that not seem like the most intuitive thing to do? But as people and entrepreneurs, or if you're working in a big company and you're wanting a raise and everything, to remember that you are the biggest asset. That is such a huge lead, because I know we can get wrapped up in numbers and, are we pitching the right amount of money, or am I asking for enough, or am I asking for too little? And some people have no problem asking for what they want. They just throw it out. And, there's a school of thought where there's certain individuals who think, oh, I have 7% of this. I have 7 to 70%, let's say, qualified to do this job. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to pitch it because I have the confidence. And there are people that are 99.9% eligible and have every single aspect, but then they feel, but I don't have that 0.01%, that 0.1%. So maybe I shouldn't apply myself. But it's like, dude, that person over there is way less qualified than you, but they are coming at it way more like confident. And so they're getting the job. And I love that you led with, no, I know my confidence. I know my worth. And you would be lucky to have me, as I would be so privileged to help you grow. Like, that was such a beautiful way to put that. There was no, I'm better than you. We are great together. Let's move forward with this.
Yep. The two of us together will be better than the parts. And that's what it came down to. And that's how it worked.
Oh, that's so
But
good.
don't let me think that I don't have doubts. Like, so don't, because I do, there are many times that I do. And, like I said, I'm great at giving advice to others and mentoring other people. And then, I come home, and of course, I have my husband and my son and my daughter reminding me of the things, telling other people, because, you let your guard down a little bit more. And so, you have to go push past that. So I don't want anybody to think that, oh, if I have doubts, I can't ever get there. No, I still have doubts. There are things, and as I transition in my life to different projects and things I want to do, there are definitely doubts. Is it the right thing to do? I'm not sure, but it's, you just got to go for it. And
Right.
surround yourself with people who believe in you so that they give you the confidence to help move forward.
Ooh, that's so true because what they say, you act or you take up the characteristics of the five people that are closest to you.
Yes.
And as a woman of a certain age, I'm 43, I've definitely done some weeding out of the people that I surround myself with. And man, it has helped my everything so much more. My energetic, just the space and what I can give, and just any doubts that I have, limiting my social media intake. It's all that kind of stuff. And I really feel that we don't take into consideration that part, really, what how it affects us when it comes to business is the people that we surround ourselves with. Are we with people that actually are cheering us on? If not, we can find a new community. Shout out to
Exactly.
CIE and every networking event
Oh,
in Wilmington,
yes.
North Carolina, because I never thought Wilmington, I would never have expected such an incredibly welcoming networking type of town as Wilmington. Everybody is just so encouraging. Everyone wants to connect everybody with everybody else. It's just, it's beautiful. And other towns I've been in has been I felt isolated. I didn't really have anybody to talk to, and I didn't really know where to go. And it was very much like, who are you and what do you have to offer me? Then, this vice versa. So Wilmington is such a beautiful town for that.
Wilmington's been great, and I live in Raleigh as well because I spent a lot of time in Wilmington and Raleigh, and there's a wonderful group, of women's, all groups, entrepreneurs, a lot of women's specialty groups that are just terrific to be able to get the kind of support that you're looking for. It's funny, it just came to mind. Probably about 10 years ago, I was asked to give a talk at the Biotech Center about how to be a successful consultant. Because I've been successful, so what do you do? And it was when I'm dating myself. When David Letterman was doing 10 top tens every night, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to do one of those top 10, tips to being a successful business consultant. And my number one tip was like, waiting, going through all the tips, get your ducks in a row, get your legal stuff. My number one was volunteer intentionally. And the whole room like stopped, and they were like, what are you talking about? We're not talking about volunteering. And I'm like, volunteer intentionally. And they were like, well, explain that. And I said, well, I always volunteer. I really feel strongly that you have to give. I have been given many things in life, worked very hard, but not everybody has ample opportunities, and it's important that we all help one another. Every time I took on a business client, I took on a nonprofit and paid for their work. I mean, that's just who I am, and I think it's important. And so when it comes to volunteering, most of my work has actually, a lot of it has come through my volunteer work, where I volunteer with an organization and I help them out with things, and you interact with people that have similar belief sets or interests to you. And they're like, wow, you do this kind of work as a volunteer? I imagine what you do for a company. Well, and then that's your next that's your marketing. That's, you're not, and again, I'm not volunteering so I can get a job. It's not that. So I need to clarify. But what you do is you surround yourself with giving, caring people who are volunteering. And those are the kind of people that I want to work for. So it kind of, you put yourselves in the network, the community, the people that, are positive and uplifting and that will support you. And so it's worked out very well. So that's why, I said volunteering is really, it's a critical part of being a successful business person, in my opinion.
That makes so much sense because there's a lot of entrepreneur courses that I've taken. They always say, give your best stuff away for free. And this reminds me of what you're doing with volunteering. And it's because you want to gain trust, and not saying that you're doing it for any kind of incentive to get a job, but it's also that was a second nature for you to just do that. And then you get all this abundance because of your giving away that love and everything in your time for free. And it's all about that trust. And I know a lot, especially now, trust is interesting on many different
Yes.
levels that we don't have to get into, but just learning who to trust, who are we going to talk to, invest our time, money, and really our time in and working with, and who am I going to talk to about all this? Who can I trust with my thoughts about, second guessing myself, and learning that that's not a weakness. This is a place for you to build strength because you're expressing these kind of doubts or challenges that you're having. Oh, it's so good. I would love to segue into, could you explain what IVT is and how you and IVT help entrepreneurs?
So we have been in existence for 22 years now. And we work for years, we did a lot with technology transfer and helping move innovation from laboratories into businesses, and have done that for many years with large government contracts, NASA, Army Corps of Engineers, universities, companies. But over time, we've actually transitioned more into being more advisors for small business and entrepreneurs. So serving as mentors and advisors. And we work in areas such as being that, communication, marketing expertise to bring to the table, because we have designers and writers and scientists and engineers on our crew to cover any different space. To helping develop pitches so you can go after funding, or working on grant writing and positioning yourself. A lot of it is about being a translator. So like, as we talked about, I'm a scientist by training, and I communicate crazy scientific, engineering, complicated stuff to other people so that anyone can understand it. It's not dumbing it down, it's making it accessible to all. And again, working on that communication and impact so that you start to communicate your business idea in the way that resonates with your customers. So I spend a lot of time for helping companies with their positioning, their go-to-market, their operations. Again, a lot of these are smaller companies, and how do you make it work? But the communication and the positioning is really critical, and that's one of the first steps. Because people say I have a communication problem, but not a strategy problem, because they're willing to say that. So I help them with their communications, and then we delve into the strategy and their positioning as well. A lot of the positioning their product is not about their product. It's about the pain that their customers feel. And again, I think that helping small business owners understand, don't push what you're selling. What are you fixing? What problem are you addressing? And all of your verbiage, all of your language, your communication needs to go about, what is this going to do for others? Not what am I selling you, but what is what I'm giving you going to help you in what way? Like, how does it fix your problem? And so a lot of times, a lot of the businesses I work with end up needing to communicate that better. They think they understand it. I'm selling this. I'm like, well, I don't care what it took to get to that. Like, what's it going to do for me as your customer? And flipping that mindset around is something that it seems obvious when you say it, but if you actually look at the way companies and brands are positioning themselves, they're often not doing that very well. So I think that allows them to better position, better get customers, determine your better market segments, help you prioritize your resources and move in a direction. So I kind of do all of those things for organizations.
Okay, love this, especially when you talk about focus on the transformation, not the problems that they have. They know what the problem is, but focus on what's it going to do for them? Like, how are they going to better their lives because they're going to work with you or get your product?
Exactly. Yes.
Can you explain what positioning means? Do you mean, for example, well, messaging, but for example, like your business card or your Instagram bio or your LinkedIn bio? Are you positioning your LinkedIn bio using words that will put you as a leader in this field or as this product being the number one? Does positioning mean getting involved in certain events or speaking events that has you set up to be the go-to? What does positioning really mean?
It means all of that, to be honest. It's about figuring out what your authentic brand is and the way you represent yourself. If you're talking about an individual or smaller businesses where it's really around a single person, thinking of LinkedIn, people put, I'm president or CEO. Well, who cares? Like, honestly, if that's your tagline, your title goes there, but your descriptor is I'm president or director of this thing at this company. Well, what do you stand for and what do you represent? That's what I really want to know. So, why do you care? Like, what do you bring to the table? So better representative of yourself in those terms matter. The way your about section on LinkedIn is described in terms of, is it all just, I achieve this, I achieve this, I achieve this? Yes, you need to have some of that, but what are you going to do for others? Like, what are you looking for and where are you going to be? I feel like, LinkedIn is it's underutilized by a lot of small business owners. One, they figure, oh, it's just social media. I don't have time for that. But that's where the conversations are happening. That's where some decision makers are spending time. If that's where your market is, again, think about, who am I selling to? If your market's not there, then don't be there. If your market is on Facebook or TikTok or some other thing, you want to be present where those people are. That matters. But then not just selling what your service is all the time. Like, be an information curator, bring something to the table, like share what's going on, give, and people be like, wow, they really know their space, or they really understand this place. When I have a problem, I'm going to go to them because they're a trusted resource. And so when I talk about positioning, especially for individuals who are running companies or small businesses, you want to be respected as a resource in that space that you're trying to get into, because then people are going to come to you when they want to buy. If they don't trust you beforehand, why are they just going to buy something that you're selling? So I think it's about positioning yourself in that way that you bring something to the table, you share in certain areas, and then the way you communicate is a positioning as well. Go to events and activities and things that relate to what you're doing, that have the customers. Again, if your customers are not there, like, what are you going for? Or whoever you're trying, if you're trying to raise funds or investors that you want to interact with. But all of it is about building a relationship. The positioning is about building relationships properly so that the buy decision can happen much more comfortably for the customer.
Love this. Okay. Yes, yes. And that was something else you told me was LinkedIn. You said LinkedIn. And I remember going, oh, I'm already doing so much on other social channels. And now I truly understand the value of LinkedIn because it is a completely different space than Instagram, obviously TikTok, Facebook, which yeah, LinkedIn. And it's also comforting to talk to other people that are in the business space. I think at first I was a little intimidated because I wasn't sure what LinkedIn was or if I had the right terminology or could connect with people. And I realized, oh no, this is a whole different hub for the behind the scenes business. Like, let's talk to people who understand the language and actually want to hear about these, like this conversation today and other things that you have going on as just a business owner. It's nice to have that outlet to share that side of entrepreneurship that not a lot of people really understand, or even maybe your audience doesn't maybe even want to hear about because you want to share with them more about the transformation and they're not really into the technicalities. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe you could, give them behind the scenes here and there, but LinkedIn is a way to really kind of dive into networking and talking to
Well,
other
and making connections. I mean, there's oftentimes I'll go to Wilmington, I'll travel to Wilmington for an event and I share what I'm doing. And it's not just about saying, hey, I'm out here doing this. That's not what the post is about. It's about, hey, I'm in Wilmington and this company presented and this entrepreneur was great. What's wonderful is that then my other contacts will say, who is that person? We're looking to invest, or, I've been looking to meet up with someone that's in that space. Can you connect the two of us? And that's joyful to me. It's one of those things where you become a connector. And I think, that's something that we as small business owners get to do, be that connector, because you're going to connect different people. And at some point you'll get connected as well. And so it's to be able to help that hub of information and bring good people together is a benefit. And all I had to do was post where I was and who I was speaking with. And, that's a great thing. It doesn't take a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, that's such a true statement. And you are such a connector. And I would love to dive into some of the success stories that you've had with IVT and your mentorship about the following topics, such as, which we've teased about in our first teaser, was grant writing, marketing and brand strategy, and creating smarter systems, workflows, and networking skills, the unsexy but necessary, essential, critical parts of running a business. Do you have any success stories that you could share with us?
I can't give you sometimes specific names of certain things, because of client stuff. But in terms of like grant writing and awards, grants and awards are such a huge opportunity. And I've been able to leverage that to get, third-party validation for my clients. If you get an award from someone else is telling you you're great. So I don't have to tell my clients I'm great. Somebody else is doing that for me. That's a wonderful thing. So, with my team, we've been able to write successful grant applications and award applications that for, scientists who like communication and is not their thing, and they're like white lab coat in the, research lab, and helping them understand why communicating about what they do makes a difference, having them win things like R&D 100 awards. So in the innovation space, it's kind of like the Oscars. So we've written winning award applications where they won Oscars for their innovation, got to attend black tie events and get out of the lab and interact with businesses, and watching the transformation of the scientist to understanding the value of that and what that brought to them and how that helped them in the career moving up. Those are wins that you don't not a dollar figure to that. That's just the benefit of doing these things and winning. I've myself successfully written many grants as well. Our company has been a power connector for the Department of Energy. They have a American Made Challenges program, and so with that, we helped all kinds of companies write winning grant applications. We were contracted to help other companies win grants. So we helped companies and some of them won grants. So it's one of those things where, it was a wonderful opportunity to allow these companies to get additional funding to help further their ideas, their investments, to kind of move on further in their business. So I've done a lot of those things. Also worked with a lot of investors on pitch decks. So pitch decks is something, if you play in the entrepreneurial space, you always hear about pitch days and going after pitches. Some of it's to raise money, but sometimes people are just developing their pitches. Sometimes it's about how do they tell their story? So it may be that they get investment, it may be they get a partnership from it. So we've done a lot of those kind of supports, work for customers, and allowed them to secure funding, to develop partnerships, strategic partnerships with people, helped with some companies to pivot their focus to where the grant funding was. Our current state of administration has different goals and interests than the previous administration. So how do you refocus a little bit to keep your revenue streams going? And we've worked with clients to help them pivot and be agile and change their communication, adjust to a different audience, figure out how to do that, and help them successfully win awards and prizes from that competitions as well. In terms of some of the system and operational things, those are not things that go into the success bucket of saying, hey, they won this, they did this, but have helped numerous customers, put in place, talk through what kind of accounting systems they need, how about communication and IT. My company's been 100% virtual all the way back to 2022 or 2002. I'm sorry, 2002. So before COVID, now that COVID, everybody does everything virtually. But so when COVID hit, we didn't have a blip. We just kept rolling along because we've worked virtually for the entire time we've been in existence. So trying to help customers think about, okay, what tools are out there that I can afford to set up so that I can get communication streams right, get my time tracking together, make sure I've got all the pieces in place. So I've done a lot and work with a lot of businesses on figuring those things out as well. We also have an arm that does a lot of data governance, data collection. A lot of people are doing all these new apps and different things, but there's a lot of data involved, how you're collecting it, being smart about it. What about the data flow? What about the data security? We've also worked in that space as well. So pretty much, anything in the early operational stages to get these companies to move forward.
Man, so good, so much richness, and really a pot of gold for any entrepreneur, small business that is looking to have some kind of a deeper foundation, clear out all the cobwebs, and set up their map for success in the future, because we are coming at the end of 2025, which is amazing. And as a part of this conversation, and to have this conversation again in 2026 with yourselves and just kind of check in and be like, where am I right now? What do I need in my business to feel supported? What do I need personally to feel supported? And I was going to say the systems and workflows that you were talking about. Sure, it's not measurable in the sense of grants and awards, but man, I bet the mental ease of these business owners is more than they would ever be able to express. So that's huge.
Yes, exactly. How do they manage to do everything they need to do operationally? How do you look at your cash flow? It's the, like you said, the unsexy stuff, but like at the end of the day, if you don't have those things in place, you can have all the potential grants and bids in the world and you still can't function. So, sometimes you get caught in the flashy. I like to also focus on the practical.
Yes. How can people connect with you? How do they find you? Tell us, how can they work with you?
So we have a website, www.ivtgroup.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I encourage anybody to send me a connection request. You can follow me on LinkedIn as well. There's only one Nannette Stangle-Castor. It's a unique name, so you're not going to have to look around for try to figure out if it's the right one. So, and then of course, can reach out to me over can call me or whatever. But if you reach out to me, I'm probably on LinkedIn or the website, and there's a contact button there. You can also reach out. So, but I'm happy to have a conversation and figure out what can I do to help. Again, and it just. And I enjoy working with all different size businesses, but the small ones tend to. I know they're the ones that need the most help and often don't get the support. So if I can be there, like I wish I had, I'm glad to do those kind of things.
I love that. And I just, for anybody listening who is not watching on video, I want to spell out your last name. It's Stangle-Castor. There's a hyphen at Stangle dash Castor and Nannette. Yay. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Nannette, and always for your mentorship and friendship. It has truly it's shaped my life since day one. And I am so happy that we get to spend time together today and in the future as well.
You've been a privilege having you in my life. You've brought me great joy, and I've loved watching all that you've accomplished and all that you've grown over the last couple of years that we've known each other. And I can't wait to see what comes next.
Me too. Yay. To our futures and to everybody listening, to our bountiful and happy futures. Thank you, Nannette.
Thank you.